found that in order to get full coverage on YouTube, you have to have copyright-free music, because I'm all about getting that bag. You cannot get monetized if you have anything that resembles possible copyright infringement. Therefore, I had to change my intro. Hey y'all, this is 2022, a new year, a new time for podcasting. And I had to get a funky beat to basically express what I want to put out in the atmosphere. And this is TNFro. I'm back again. I'm a social critic, thought leader, but I'm more reclusive than cranky. But I want to read, watch, cook, and just share all things that make me happy. My wish is that this increases the curiosity of the listening audience to come back for more and to share with friends. I want 1 million unique listeners and downloads. I want Creative Quality Millie to be known around the world. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. So if you're listening to me on YouTube, click subscribe. Tip a sister. And I just want to thank you guys for listening. And enjoy and get your bop on. Copyright free. George Bernard Shaw said it all when he wrote, "Life is not meant to be easy, my child, but take courage. It can be delightful." I basically jacked that from an inspirational quote podcast, and I believe truer words have never been said. I usually don't record this early, or I try to, but I got off like about 6 minutes early today, got in a pool, had to relax. I feel some days that I would love to get back to the point where I enjoy what I do again. I am getting there, but it's going to be with only a concerted effort, taking care of myself, taking care of my anxiety, and creating beauty the only way that I can. And as I sit here contemplating all these things, I start out this episode with Black excellence. I have an online bookstore I've renamed and redubbed Far From Beale Street. You know, who knows? I don't know if one day I will relocate to Memphis because that's where Black land is, or I will just continue, because I think it's more courageous to face adversity head on instead of running away from it. I keep remarking that I'm always, it's so impressive when you have people that they had all this courage to face adversity and everything head on. Why can't I be not such a punk about it all? So I'm sitting here doing all I can do to continue to increase the visibility of my podcast by doing what I like. I can't not create, I'm refocusing and coming up with better ways to just basically share with the listening audience things that interest me. if I become more adept and the leading person about African American and exciting African American writers and artists, who knows? And every time that I do this section and I tell you about all of the additions to Far From Beale Street, my online bookstore, I think that's one up for us. And this is how we're going to celebrate everybody that's in the diaspora. So I've in the podcast notes and also on my blog, you'll see me mention several of these authors, but I will share a few of them with you now. I've also noticed that what I've been listening to has been a little bit heavy. I'm really not into Black romance. Eric Jerome Dickey, I was really into him back in the day, but I really have not really followed his subsequent works since his way early death. But there are authors like Tammy Orange and Nikki May and Jabari Sim, but they're pretty kind of heavy. Wahala by Nikki May may be just the balm to my more serious readings. For example, Memphis was really heavy and Take My Hand was very heavy. I think I'm going to enjoy that. And I'm going to, again, utilize my Audible because I think her as an Anglo-Nigerian woman taken with 4 women that they compare to And Just Like That or Sex and the City, but they're Nigerian. I think that's going to be hilarious. I'm adding, who is this guy or girl? Lady Hubbard, the last suspicious holdout of the Rib King fame. I'm also adding Kelly Garrett's Like a Sister, and let's see what this is about. I don't know. It's actually a mystery. When a Black reality TV star is found dead, except her estranged half-sister, she refuses to believe the official story. So she's going to need some more answers. So that's going into For Us, By Us, but it's kind of out of the realm of about what I actually usually read. So I'm going to probably put that on the back burner as one of those books that I really want to pick up, and I'm going to suggest at a later date to give a whole opinion of it on a later show. Again, I'm also finding that I am really liking, I have so much technology at my fingertips where I'm actually able to update my blog, create videos, shorts, and record my podcast. And there are people that actually listen to it. So it's kind of cool. Now, if I could just attract the right kind of people that will pay me to do the talking and to read great books. I mean, who knew? And this is the Violin Conspiracy. This is a guy that grew up in rural North Carolina. He's already been mapped out, but he also has this gift of music. But of course, it's not really practical for African American in the Deep South. When is it ever convenient for an African American creative anywhere, I would argue. But again, when you can't do anything but create, you basically will create. Wahala, Take My Hand, which I'm actually reading now, which surprisingly, I'll be talking about this at a later time. But that whole book by Dolan Perkins Valdez, that'll go in my premium content. It is an indictment of an entire system of inequity and racism. It's moving, but it's also hauntingly familiar. I find it embarrassing that I'm a part of any entity, corporate or governmental, federal, otherwise, that basically sanction sterilization of people that didn't understand. Harken back to the Tuskegee experiment for 40 years. There was state sanctioned basically genocide and sterilization of undesirables. If you were black and poor, you were considered an undesirable. Nobody would protect you from 12 and 13-year-olds getting pregnant, but they also wanted to make sure that you couldn't have any kids ever again. I don't know. The whole thing I found haunting, and I'm hopeful that it's like one of those things that you don't want us to ever, or anybody to have to ever experience ever again. This, by the book by Jasmine Guillory, I think is also going to be kind of like trash washing why I watch trash TV. This is a publicist who worked really, really, really hard, overworked, underpaid, feeling stifled. Wow. And she's feeling completely lost. So she goes after a reclusive writer, ends up in a Santa Barbara mansion to give him a pep talk. They soon discover that they have more in common than either one of them expected. As the deadline neared, Izzy and Bo begin to realize there may be something there that wasn't there before. I don't know. I added that to For Us, By Us, read by everybody, and TNFro podcast. It doesn't appear as heavy as some of the other works that I've actually read or have been reading, so I can only be hopeful that you will enjoy these works as much as I've enjoyed them. And as far as the previous week also, I've had the pleasure of also discovering several artists, and my dog is crazy, but several artists what are you doing? Black female painters that are making such have made such an impact that with Western and European sensibilities that you would not necessarily have heard or seen. Again, I refer you back to my Dells Angels Inc.blog, and you can actually take a look at just a name of a few. But a lot of these painters are not so obscure. It's just that people would think that because they don't talk about them that they don't exist. I'm more interested in the complete representational and not some of the abstract, like Amy Sherrill, who basically her picture of Forever FLOTUS, Michelle Obama, hangs in the Natural Portraiture Museum in D.C. Emma Amos, Laura Willing Waring, Lynette Viademboiki, Nadiki Crosby, Tanyan Adetola, Sungi Mingaya, Dematola Marcus, all of these women, either representation of African American artists or African or Black artists throughout the diaspora, are make such a impact on beauty and art that you would think, or we're being led to think, that nobody knows them, but they should have as many props as many of the Western influence artists, because they are just the bomb, and I think they're the bomb. So I refer you back to my previous content where I talk about, and I'll follow up in my Memphis, the debut novel by Tara Stringfellow, but also in my blog where you can actually see their magnificent works of art. And just let me know what you think. And if the message is not too trolly, I promise I'll read it on the next episode. Promise. Fingers crossed. One of the major things that I love to do on a Sunday afternoon, actually it's still Sunday morning, is read and watch TV. And this part of the show, the beginning of Quark, Bar, and Popular Culture, is realizing that all my favorite television shows seem to come up or drop Sunday morning. In particular, you can hear the background is one of my favorite shows, P-Valley, which you have to have a subscription to Stars. I don't know, maybe one day I'll get a sponsorship either from Amazon or from Stars or Katora Hall. This week's episode, it just seems like she's on some hoodoo shit, and the music is still slapping, the dancing is slapping, and it's called 7 Pounds of Pressure. I'm not going to give a whole bunch of it away, but I'm going to let you know that this episode literally just dropped a little bit after midnight. I have ridiculously already watched this twice full through. I'm getting ready to watch it again for the third time, and it hasn't even been released for 12 hours. I'm still tripped out. I'm tripped out about the actress that plays Mercedes, the actress, the new dancers, this white girl who is like the Gidget replacement. And then there's this other female that looks like she's the younger version of the Mercedes character. And Big Bone is hysterically funny because she can twerk, but she can't dance, and she can't work the pole, but she has body. Really, her body's so confusing because that ass doesn't seem to be naturally occurring, but I'm with it because she's beautiful. And the way the women dance, whether you are respectable, ratchet, church-based, it is crazy to think that watching these women is like an athletic event, and just watching them fly on the pole, it literally looks like these women are superheroes, sexually explicit superheroes. But I just like the athleticism. I love the grace and the beauty. And as I said in last week's edition, Clifford is snatched. And it's his 40th birthday and he's not reacting well. The whole storyline is I honestly think the pink is haunted. And we are deep down south, and Diamond is the purveyor, seems to be, of the hoodoo. Something is up with the Keyshawn character, the Mississippi character. I don't understand what hold does the not Richie Rich have over her, but he's still kicking her ass. And she goes on tour from one controlling situation to the next. I don't think her manager is up to any good. Little Murder is just hell-bent on just getting out, but what is also holding him back is his affiliation with this green and red gang. I don't know if they are a southern portion of the Rolling Crips or the Bloods, but I don't know, girl. I'm just concerned that they're going to take that hood mess, ghetto hood mess, is going to keep him tied to Mississippi, not going to get out, where not only is he going to lose his opportunity to excel and to explode on a national scene, he may even lose his life. I think it's going to need to be another gun battle, and there's going to be some more collateral damage. And not everybody can go where you have to go. Family, friends, etc. Some people you really have to leave behind. I don't think it would be of his best interest to leave Clifford behind, but he's going to have to leave them hood Negroes behind because they're going to get his ass killed. I'm probably going to have to end up coming back to this because one of the things that as I dealt with this episode is on some hoodoo. Couture Hall, the creator, is on some hoodoo mess. For real, y'all. And I can't even, but it is so representative of, I hadn't thought about it so much more since my own father passed away. In The Haunting, there is a scene towards the end of the movie where when Mercedes kicks out Autumn, or Haley, whatever she goes by, and Haley moves into the club, and she goes to get a bottle of booze. I thought she had stopped drinking, but I guess with her issues with her and Mercedes breaking up, she goes out into the main dance floor, but before she goes out, it looks like her ex-boyfriend in that cheap-ass seersucker suit shows up on the screen. I don't get the significance of that. But I think it just lends its hand into, it's sounding like Mercedes actually shot him. And of course, Hoodoo Diamond basically says it takes exactly 7 pounds of pressure to shoot a gun. And that's why she had that pain in her shoulder that he had to remove. It was like the spirit of the gun and what her actions were is why she is having so much issues. Also, but it also goes to that whole room, and the pink itself has some bad juju in there, and it does need to be saged. Something needs to be released, because I believe the spirit of that man and all of his evilness is actually clouding the club. And for the pink to get back to where it's going to need to be, that spirit and badness is just going to need to be released. Maybe that's what it shows up to. But evidently Mercedes Captain, Big L, and Uncle Clifford chopped his ass up, and all three of them, including Diamond, hid the body, or they threw the body parts into the Mississippi and it just washed downstream, which either in itself, that's some macabre stuff that you actually have to live through. And what I do know is I am going to probably rewatch it again multiple times before next week comes back up. In addition to probably rewatching the entire first season, because I'm just that hooked on the music. And, you know, we all gonna make it out in this bitch in some other way. We can only dream, right? It's hard to have creative freedom when you are Black and you are basically broke in this country. It dictates a lot of what your decisions are, but it also gives you that drive. I am still hate watching 90 Day Fiancé. I'm grateful for the fact that I didn't have to see a lot of Bilal and the Emily chick, because I can't stand either one of them. Also, Guillermo, I'm having questions about him too, and Eve and Muhammad. A lot of these people, they are only showing the unrealistic expectations. I guess that makes good, not so reality TV, because highlighting the trauma and the badness of a hastily made decision is, I don't know, it just wears on your nerves. One of the things that I was very much interested in is the freedom. Okay, let me think of some of the characters that I'm kind of warming up to. I think I am going to check out Jabri's Black Serbians, because they had, for the simple reason that they actually had a recording session in Chicago, and I think I like the alternative type music. That's probably the best thing I've ever had. Jabri is from mixed dude from the Midwest. I still think she's blackfishing, but I'm like, Miona, what nationality are you for real? I don't know. I saw her try on her wedding dress, and it doesn't look like it's too dark bronzer that she's putting on. She's actually from somewhere Mediterranean or Northern Africa, for all I know. She seems just mixed to me. I'm not sure. But what I am sure of is that Jabri's going to have to make a decision, because you can't have both. You can't be so dedicated at the expense of your career. And if they slap and if they have the potential to hit, why not go along with that? I don't know about the only person that seems to benefit from their relationship is Miona. The group doesn't, and he seems to be better when he's creating and when he's in that group. And maybe that's the issue that David could not verbalize. But if he's going to be whole and create, and the group is going to continue, he's better that way. And if the person that he's supposed to be in love with and married to can't understand that, then they may need to keep it. He may need to step off. It's sad, but you can't make it work when y'all are on two different wavelengths. It just doesn't go. That's real. The Emily, their relationship is not realistic. And again, the dude from Cameroon is never going to get the support of her family because they think he's crazy. And then she's unrealistic, and she's very caring. I want it my way, and I'm not willing to compromise. And I think that's going to be his end. I think he's going to end up being deported. Just saying. Also, because they are definitely mixed matched. And they did not show Ari and Biniam in this week's episode, but he actually has a featherweight bout that they're going to be showing next week. And Ari already flipped out on him previous week when he had to spar with that female. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And I don't know if she's going to be able to tolerate, because he may very well get his ass kicked. MMA is no joke, and I don't know if she has the stomach to handle it. I've also watched this episode of All Stars, where I think it was Raja and somebody else both got 2 stars. They have to keep one for themselves and give the other one out, and then they still have to be concerned about blocking using the platinum plunger. I am just always marvel at the artistry of drag, and having the best of the best never ceases to be just impressive. Looking at it from an artistic standpoint, the music, the fashion, and how much conventional fashion steals from the drag world, and then they try to drag them. It's just so cheesy. But just the overall artistry of those artists, it just blows my mind how talented they are and just all around funny they are. You don't have to agree with the lifestyle, or even if you are homophobic, it's that art form is just not for you, so don't watch it. But for those of us that can appreciate the artistry and that type of creativity, All Stars, this season of All Stars is magnificent. And again, not getting a plug, just giving them their ups, because it is absolutely amazing. And I'm only going to mention this briefly because I did wake up in the middle of the night and watch it, and I probably am not going to watch it again. It seems like the First Lady's probably has wrapped. I watched the last 2 episodes. What I was most impressed with was how Betty Ford got clean, and how it came to be that she had the Betty Ford Center was in Palm Springs, California, because there was no rehab there. How Eleanor Roosevelt broke it off with her long-term homosexual partner, didn't realize that she lived for another 20 years after Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed away. He actually had significant cardiovascular disease. Cabbages were not widely available, or were not available at all. He probably didn't. I think we only had digoxin, no Entresto. And he still carried on with his paramour, his mistress, who was at his side when he passed away, and how the daughter facilitated it, and Eleanor still knew about it, but that's why she cut him off. I also did not know that she had a very strained relationship with her daughter Anna, who was everything that she was not. Fair, blonde, I don't know if that had a lot to do with it, but she was the only daughter, and she did not remotely have any really connection with her. The daughter was definitely a daddy's girl. And they facilitated him in so many different ways. And it wasn't until he died probably in the first few months of his 4th term, that they were like, you know what? We need to have a 2-term maximum on the presidency because of FDR. But although he did a lot of things, great things for this country, he was still a man. He was fallible. And it seems like his wife was stronger than he actually was. I basically believe that for both him and for Betty Ford. if they had been born in different times, both of them would have probably been presidents themselves. I fast forwarded for the most part through the Michelle Obama rendition by Viola Davis, because all I kept yelling at TV was, girl, relax your fucking lips. She doesn't talk like that. She doesn't walk like that. And she doesn't sound like that. I'm going to have to probably go on record and say I couldn't get past. I think this was probably one of the worst portrayals of Viola Davis's career. I think if you listen to the message, it was very clear. The only thing, because I couldn't even watch the end of the Obama presidency and then the beginning of the nonsense of the Trump years, some of it becoming, and seeing the almost roommate from Princeton, and even that fell kind of light. And going through the trauma of some of the worst and egregious things that this administration was allowed to do and to say, I didn't really feel necessary that I had to see that again. It's just like watching the January 6th riots. I don't need to see that shit again. I've lived through it once and I'm good and I'm still recovering from it. I don't need to be triggered again and rewatch it. But there were so many things that they highlighted that it also made me very sad. How I did not know just how much the Clintons, or Hillary Clinton in particular in her campaign for presidency, was fraught and was beleaguered, and they did not take the threat of Trump and the how many people would rather elect a sociopath than an Oxford grad from Arkansas. And that they were so mad that they could not take another 4 to 8 years white people were so angry that a black man who was pristine was elected and ran the country into its heights. The backlash of that was just so great. At the same time, the explosion of social media, people have been mad for 8 years, even more so than when Clinton was in office. They were just so angry of that. And they had this subversive sociopath, dyslexic, run the country. They would rather vote for him, even though he was a sexual predator, than Hillary Clinton. Her aloofness, not waiting to the very last minute. And she trashed Obama when she first ran, and she had to concede the party nomination to him. And Michelle never forgot that. And they waited until the very last moment when they could have been campaigning for her and with her and would have written in on the coattails of the nomination if they had played it right. But they played it the same, and they got played by Trump. And we're still smarting from that. The backlash is real. We could have had another 4 and 8 more years. We would not have had the chaos. A lot of this nonsense that have happened throughout the world, it would not have led to some of this leftist BS that has exploded in the last 4.5 years. It would have been a lot different if they had trusted right and trusted the data, and if they had just utilized them to the point of positivity. And if we really wanted to continue to this agenda of prosperity and not of avarice and me, she should have been elected, but they didn't play it right, and they got because they say nobody in their right mind would vote for that fool. Well, yeah, they underestimated foolishness, I think. That's the only part of her performance that got me thinking, and it wasn't necessarily her performance, it's what remembering those times and some of the things that they said, because I didn't even really like the portrayal of Hillary Clinton by whatever actress that was. Definitely Forever Float is being portrayed by Viola Davis. I couldn't get with, because I couldn't look at her in her face with her pursed lips looking like the slappy minstrel show puppet. I just couldn't get past that. And the pimp, because Viola Davis has issues with her joints and the strut that she could not, because of her own infirmity, she could not mirror the same strut of the regalness of Michelle Obama. It's just, I don't know why nobody told her any of this, and why I don't, and I hate being an armchair critic. It's just, is this the best y'all could do? You know, I like the young actresses that played Sasha and, oh, what's the other little girl name, who's absolutely beautiful now? And the girl, the young actress that played a young Michelle. But it's just really hard for me to imagine Viola Davis in this role. Viola Davis on her own is beautiful, but I think she could have and should have played this different than it coming off as an awfully meme minstrel show. Because every time I see those lips, that's all I see is the minstrel cartoons from the 1930s. Maybe that's a horrible thing to say, but that's all I could see. And I don't know if the directors or acting coach or whoever just did not feel that they had enough strength to correct her, but some of her mannerisms is what I think took away from this role. I wonder, I don't think they have spoken, because I haven't really heard anything online, but I haven't really been looking. Maybe that'll be the next thing I do before I complete the recording of this episode, to see if Michelle Obama has watched it, and if she's saying, man, do I purse my lips? Is my walk that halting? Nah, girl, it's not. It is just this portrayal has made a meme out of some of your subtleties, and it was just seems like it was just broadcast and highlighted when it didn't need to be. So who gets the donkey of the week? These fools are the perpetual donkeys of the week. DeSantis and his medical crony, that Uncle Tom, Dr. What's his name? I don't remember this fool's name, because he makes me sick. DeSantis bullying the Special Olympics to drop their vaccine mandate goes to prove that he is completely uninterested in keeping anyone safe. And he's backed up by associate professor that is head of the Florida Department of Health. We got these people that are willing to do this dude's dirty work and to purport things that are so contrary to medical and doing no harm. It is hard for me to even say I support or to support the University of Florida because of this fool being on the board. I don't. It's all about bullying. It's all about people having these really conservative and just absolute wrong ideas about things in general. The war on transgender youth, bullying the Special Olympics to drop the vaccine mandate, I'm sure Eunice Kennedy is spinning in her grave that they just didn't pull out of Florida. And that's where you hit these types of stupid bullies. You hit them in the pockets. So when are other alum from University of Florida, that system, health system, y'all going to get tired of these fools making a mockery of science and of our university? When are we going to just say enough is enough? When the money stops rolling in because we can't support what doesn't make any sense. But if y'all are willing to have the NRA and a lot of these other anti-vaccines and whoever line your pockets, if y'all are okay with that, that's on y'all. And y'all gonna have to live with that. Also, I want to play a little clip for you guys because this basically tripped me out. This dropped on June 2nd. And this also goes to the fact that I left this in draft since April 22nd because one, I didn't care. And then two, I didn't really realize it until another podcaster had brought this up. I listened to Demetri L. Lucas religiously, as well as The Read. Mental health is a real thing. Also, just other medical conditions are a real thing, but mental health is a real thing. The struggle is real. Y'all stop by The Read and y'all check on Kid Fury. He admitted so much in their last recorded episode of his struggles with depression. Is very widely known how much they support therapy, but he was clearly suicidal, and he's had these breakdowns, emotional breakdowns, on a prior show that I can remember at the height of the pandemic. And this episode was more poignant because I think if he did not check himself into some type of locked unit and is under a suicide kind of Baker Act watch, I would be surprised. What did not surprise me is there is no episode that came out this past Friday, and it's not clear when he's going to actually be back. But I talk about this section because after April 22nd, a lot of people, including that Schumer babe, said they were triggered by the violence of the slap and blah, 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 blah. And I put this in draft because I basically forgot about it, but I'm glad I didn't delete it. What brought it back up is Wendy Williams and Carson Kressley are hosting the Wendy Williams show. And he asked her about Jada Pinkett Smith's response, her response to the slap and what she thought. And I'm going to just dial this back a little bit. I'm going to play for you what
my deepest hope
she said.
Is that these two intelligent, capable men have an opportunity to heal, talk this out, and reconcile. The state of the world today, we need them both. And we all actually need one another more than ever. Until then, Will and I are continuing to do what we have done for the last 28 years. And that's keep figuring out this thing called life together.
Oh, way to quote Prince. This thing called life. What if...
That night, as far as I was concerned, was going to be crowned this generation's Sidney Poitier, which is a huge honor. Mm-hmm. I felt to be a good partner. There was no...
I felt that her response was overly dramatic. And she also made it a point to point out two blockbuster movies that she happened to be in with them. She also pointed out that he was going to be crowned the Sidney Poitier of the generation, and because of the slapping, act like a thug, he didn't get that crown. I would I would basically say I don't think that's true. He still got the reward. He still got crowned. He acted like somebody from West Philly, but did that hurt his standing in the community? No. Did that hurt his chances of rebounding back from this? No. And Sidney Poitier wouldn't have had to go on stage and slap anybody, because nobody would have tried to punk him like that or talk negatively about that joke was in poor taste. It was poorly constructed and he didn't need to say it. Chris Rock got because he went off script and he went after this man's wife. Should he have reacted that way? No. But this reaction is just overblown. And also, who cares? Does that slap make us all look bad? No. We don't know these people. It's not making it hard for any of us to be able to continue to live and to exist in this world. Will Smith slapping the taste out of Chris Rock's mouth does nothing for the average run-of-the-mill black person in this country. It makes me look at him in a different light, because I'm sure they had, and I've said this before, I think they had this conversation. They've been player hating him for years, since Jada went from Pac to big-eared, goofy-ass Will Smith, who actually is more powerful and richer than any of those people that have been on the grind forever. Because he was the golden boy when Pookie and them, that's Chris Rock, were still grinding. Sorry, you didn't get the prize woman. And her reaction to Jada Pinkett Smith, again, she had no nickel in that dime. Jada Pinkett Smith said something without saying anything. She basically recognized it and realized it, but what accountability does she have to have in it? He was defending her. I'm sure she didn't tell him to do it, and he did it. He acted on his own. What more does she have to do or not say? If she said nothing, they were talking. Now that she said something, they're still, which I think is nothing, but now they're still talking, and you got these overreactions. What was not career ending for Will Smith, who is a franchise amongst himself, is an end to the possibility of Vivica Fox ever having to work with somebody as respectful, as marketable, and as career changing in the future, because this is just a little blip. In the future, I honestly think Will Smith or one of his kids are going to come back bigger and badder before. But her opportunity to ride that newfound wave, she has basically burned that bridge by being an auntie and trying to preach this respectability bullshit. That's what's going to, with that, her career, a potential glow up again, has possibly ended. But not that slap, girl. And anybody else that thinks that crap, got another thing coming. Also, I'm going to briefly mention this because I hadn't followed it. If you guys have been watching anything online about D.L. Hughley and Monique beefing over who was going to be the headliner at some comedy show in Detroit, it sounds like it was a promoter issue. Probably the promoter basically promised them, both of them, to be the headliner, and was playing them off of each other. And instead of the two black people beefing with each other, they should be beefing and calling the promoter out on their bullshit, and not this squabbling, these old people black people squabbling online when everybody's just saying, somebody take their phones and move this off of line. I didn't even look up where D.L. Hughley had said some rude crap on his podcast / radio show, or Monique has gone live and had her rant. I don't have time for that. I don't want to basically lean into that negative energy when they should be beefing with the promoter, and probably get more and get another opportunity to headline respectfully. But there you go. That's all I got to say about that. And about black aunties and uncles doing the most online, overreacting. And it looks like Vivica Fox got her face fixed, because I'm looking at these stills and it looks like she had somebody correct her nose and her cheeks, and she doesn't look like a caricature of herself. Just saying. I wish, if you're not going to really say anything, I wish you're going to just be quiet. Really, shutting up is free. I feel fortunate to be able to produce either what you would call bonus episodes or episodes outside of my regular podcast. Because the podcast is TNFro is reading, and I guess I should put it, I'm reading and listening, because I have the pleasure, and it's really cool for me to be able to talk about books. And when I'm listening to or reading, I'm going to make a concerted effort not to buy another book, but I do have a pretty cool Audible account that I can listen to most every book that is released. No, it doesn't take the place of the look and smell and the feel of books, but in this way, I still get to enjoy the written word in oral or recorded form. So in this section, and because I don't have permission to read from these books and to share certain paragraphs, I can at least talk about my feelings and how I felt about certain sections without illegally reproducing the work of art. So here is Tara Stringfellow's Memphis, the conclusion, and thank you for listening. So as I finish up and I'm listening to the acknowledgments of Tara Stringfellow's Memphis, I'm just stunned, or I'm just grateful to my ability to be allowed to create. I have the time and the inclination to just talk about what I like. That's one of the main reasons why I started the podcast. And I wouldn't even be able to dream of a reality where I could be a podcaster and creator full time, but still make bank, because I still got bills to pay. What I also have noticed is, because I don't have the rights to the book themselves, I can't read any part of them. I'm not allowed to do that without having some type of copyright infringement. So I can only basically talk in depth about how the book has affected my viewpoints going forward, or any book have affected my views. And these are my personal opinions. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's just how I feel about the words that are contained within the pages. Overall, it takes more courage to exist, just in general. It takes courage to exist as a Black creative, especially a Black female creative. It takes courage to continue to dream, to grind, and to prosper, and then to prosper and be prosperous, but don't apologize for it. All of those things take a significant courage. The character arc of all of the characters in the book, all affected by space and time, and I'll actually get to how all of them affected me individually. But even though the book was a series of dizzying flashbacks, it still was very cohesive, because they all had to pick cotton. They all lived through traumatic events, wars, rumors of wars, mass shootings, and they still existed. It was like society kept daring them to exist. society kept raging war against them. Society kept having these death rage with the KKK, pogroms, shooting bullets at them in all of the world wars in Vietnam. The lynchings still continuing up until this day, but definitely when the police lynch one of their own, as far as Myron North, the character Hazel's husband and Miriam's father. They all dealt with this type of trauma differently. It was the violence that surrounded the characters in this book. Everyday life was just astounding. And it was so relatable because as African-American woman, creative, this is my reality. Not so much of living in a real hood with gunfire and the sweet sound of an AR-15 as your daily existence, or you ran with a group and committed murders before you went into the Marines, like one of the characters, Father Jacks in Chicago. But this book is relatable for the level of violence that all African Americans in this country are exposed to on a daily and for generations. I basically listened to Beyond. I think I stopped on Sunday, was talking about when Miriam finally left her abusive husband. He had just made major, and for whatever reason, he blackened her eye, and they moved back to Memphis. In the 6 years since that period of time, there was a lot of living. We learned more about Derek. He was finally arrested for committing or participating in a drive-by. And how these hurt and broken men just screw with us, and we still carry on, and we're still continue to be great. We struggle and not really leaning into or profiting from our gifts and our greatness, because life gets in the way of that. It seems like the U.S. military is concentrated white supremacy, the rank and file, and it just smacks of that. I went through just talking about the character arc. Myron, we found out that he had basically was drafted into the World War II, got out, survived some of the most violent war fights, to only come back home to become the Memphis's first black detective, but he was actually lynched and murdered by his own. Then there's Jax, who was taught how to fight. He already kind of knew how to fight. Came into the military damage. He was a killer before he even went into the Marines, went through Desert Storm, wonderfully trained, had the mistake and had to live through the mistake of killing innocent civilians, and came back, made rank, and who he took it out on was the low-hanging fruit, was Miriam. His brother Bird, who's his fraternal twin, is also a thug, but he is of the streets. Miriam, who's also in herself was broken, was born 1 week after her own father was murdered. She was always coddled and protected by the community and her mother, but she still, either she ignored or she had no experience with love to realize that the guy in the pressed uniform had demons that he had not dealt with, and she was going to catch his hands. August was the product of lust, but she was a brilliant artist, wonderful voice, never leaned into her gifts. Her father actually was her mother's lover, a civil rights activist that was also assassinated. Hazel, the strong matriarch, she never wanted anybody's help, became to a T a black activist, and almost like Queen Victoria, and she continued to mourn her husband and be a widow until she passed away. The men that surrounded them, the main characters like Stanley and Marlon, Bird Jacks, the civil rights activist that was murdered, and even August's violent lover, who we come to find out that is Derek's father, but he was a supreme dickhead and also very abusive. It's over and over again that men are warped to have to continue to prove their humanity while they are treated inhumanely, while they are abused and killed without impunity. And they are warped over and over again, and they pass this on to subsequent generations. They're all products of violent events, from World War II to the ongoing lynchings in this country, to MLK's murder, to the gun violence that rocked Memphis since the late 60s, even until now. The 2001 World Trade Center attacks and all the Gulf Wars, 1 and 2, Afghanistan, 20 years in that hellhole, and possibly now Korea and Ukraine. And after all this violence and hell and fear and domestic violence, Joan and Maya could now be allowed to lean into their gifts. And that's how the story ends, where Joan actually gets accepted into a prestigious fellow artist fellowship in London. She has to be freed from the bondages of violence and of doubt, self-doubt, and of generational low self-esteem. She has to do this after the 2001 Trade Center attacks. And when her father comes back with his brother, finally apologizes for the ghost and the gulf that warped him. He's trying to heal, but Marion had enough, and she had moved on. She probably had forgiven him years ago, even through the struggle, but she really didn't need him to complete her anymore, because now she was complete. And it's through Miriam discovering Joan's art in Derek's room, her daughter's rapist, and then Joan going to confront him or to see him, is how she is free to live within her talent. I'm also tripped out because I've also been able or allowed to discover famous African-American artists that I didn't even know existed. This is what reading does to you, and having the time to focus on things other than your work, because sometimes work can just be boring. And although I think this company, Co-OON-Ness.com, or maybe it's Co-OON-Ness.com, an online art platform, the name may be slightly problematic. I'm excited to find out, or have found out, and I'm going to post some of these Black female artists' works of art in the blog notes when I actually get this, as part of this is what you get when you subscribe to Anchor at my Anchor FM or Podbean or Patronus page. You get more information. This fictional Black African-American artist, I'm sure, is based on someone. I don't know who it is, but through this book, I was able to look up people that I really didn't know, like Laura Waring, with huge funds of work. Alma Thomas, Louise Jones, Gwendolyn, Faith Ringo, Emma Amos, Suzanne Jackson, and Amy Sherrill of The Float is Forever. Her portrait hangs in the National Portrait Museum in DC. And I seem to lean more into the more realistic renditions of the Lynzette, let's see, Sungai Malingia. And just so, even though I've hacked up their names, this list that is on this webpage, which also will be included in the notes, do not just point to African American female artists, but African or Black artists throughout the diaspora. There's Cynthia Sifa Malanga. There's Damaloya Marcus. More of the postmodernistic and abstract renditions. They are probably beautiful in their own right, but again, I am more drawn and more so appreciate, further appreciate the beauty of more realistic rendition of the human form. And what I will post is the portraiture that speaks to me more realistically, because there's 30 and counting. I'm probably going to include the ones that I find the most compelling in the podcast notes. And it seems that the character is just like anyone in real life. The more that you try to restrict them, the more they are determined to create. And it was like she had to create to push back the darkness that was her existence. And they asked the question, could Black women ever know freedom? Yes. When you are truly free to create beauty in whichever form, either through drawing, through painting, through whatever your profession is, being a podcaster, being a blogger, that's when you know true freedom. Because if you cannot not create, and also you get paid to create, that's true freedom right there. You're richer than you ever thought you could ever be. And richness to me is more than monetary gain. It is about a full freedom, the being able to exist and not apologize for it, and exist and be prosperous and never and don't apologize for it. That's true freedom to me, and I hope to encourage other people to pursue aggressively their passion and to create beauty. So that's how we're going to end this episode, and I'm going to end it with a positive word. I used to scoff at people making this statement because of its simplicity, or maybe because it sounded more like an admonishment that I was being everything but kind. But then when I started investigating it for myself, that's when I realized that I was confusing politeness with kindness. Politeness is a fake, superficial manner in which there's no required investment, no self-reflection. But being kind is an adjective. It is an action. If you're kind to yourself first, it's like exercise memory. You will continue and be kind to others. Let that sit with you for a while. I'm going to try to be kind to myself. I'll be kind to others. It's very simple, and you got to repeat it. Lean into the spirit of a new year by counting your blessings, giving to others, and spreading happiness. I know I will. And this episode, or this podcast, is my means to spread joy and happiness and light and enlightenment. There's so much going on with aggression and just meanness. But if I can leave you with one small positive thought, start your day with that can change everything for you and just basically change your day. Don't forget to check out Dale's Angels Inc. for the notes on this podcast, as well as other works by CQM and other contributors that are in work or in being edited right now. Also, check out my Instagram feed, TNFro is Reading. You can check me out on Facebook, TNFro is Reading Book Club, as well as my YouTube channel, TNFro is Reading and Eating. And what I'm just chatting and streaming at TV Food Wine Girl on Twitter. Navigate to Writer's Block Coffee or shipabagofdicks.com. Use my promo code TNFro Coffee or TNFro Got Jokes, respectively, to get a percentage off of your order. Don't forget to drop me a line at TNFroWasReading@gmail.com. All non-trolling messages may be actually read online, and you can do the same if you are in Podbean or Anchor or wherever you listen to the podcast. And again, shedding light and positivity. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Until next time, bye.